everybody. This is Peter Mullins on another edition of Fora. Really excited to have Jake Sorofman here, who's the CMO of Visier. Jake, so happy to connect with you again, and welcome to the show.
Peter, it's always a pleasure. It's good to see you.
Great. Well, you're a bit of a legend in marketing, but I'd love for people that aren't familiar with you just to hear a little bit about your background and your progress through marketing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent, I guess, the last 25 years or so marketing with and for venture-backed B2B software companies primarily, with the conspicuous exception of a 5-year left turn where I was a Gartner analyst, which was super fun, bit random. And I like to say I came back from that little hiatus, I think, a better CMO. It just gave me an opportunity to reflect on the discipline from a different vantage point and go deep on sort of why we do what we do. And following that time at Gartner, I was CMO of a company called Pendo here in Raleigh that grew very fast, continues to grow very fast. That was definitely one of the formative, important sort of pivot points in my career. I'd done a lot of startups, some successful, some not. Pendo was kind of a galvanizing moment for me, and a really, really fun experience. And now I'm at this company, Visier, that is a bit of a different profile in the sense that it's been around for 11, 12 years, based in Vancouver, and really kind of meeting an interesting moment in its history, where it has best-in-class technology, category leadership, and incredible market timing. And what we do is people analytics. And people analytics is really about understanding and knowing your employees, your workforce, better to make better decisions on behalf of them and on behalf of your business. And what matters more than that right now?
Right, absolutely. Now, I'm going to butcher a terrible metaphor, so I hope you don't mind. But now you had started your career, if I recall correctly, in sailing, and if I look over your shoulder, I can see a whole lot of nautical themes and nautical charts, right? So what the thing that came to mind when you're talking about the great market timing for Visier is like the wind versus the tide. Like here you've got the tide that's just rolling out. It's perfect timing because people are coming back to work. People are considering resigning. There's the whole great resignation story that's happening right now. How do you capture that? Like you know that you're at the right time. You know, what are you thinking about right now to try and capture that tide?
It's a really interesting analogy. And yes, I'm definitely a boat nut. I've had salt in my veins my entire life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really had never thought of it that way, but it's so perfect because when you think about sailing, whether you're just sailing for fun or racing, there are all these different variables that you need to consider: the direction of the wind, the velocity of the wind, the current, the tide, the competition. So there are all these things. Well, competition only applies if you're racing, but there are all these things that you need to sort of factor in to find the right course and situate your boat in the right position to maximize in all those variables. So that is kind of the game we're playing, is like you have to look at all those variables. What do you have to work with from a resourcing perspective?
Yeah.
And skills and talent perspective? What's the environment around you in terms of the competitive landscape, the market opportunity, the problem that you're looking to solve? And factor in all those variables to make the right set of moves that maximize the potential outcome. That's, as I say that, it's actually pretty daunting because that's not an easy thing to do. It's just very dynamic.
Right. And I imagine, like, when you come in and you see that right now is the time, like people are going back to work right now, there must be like a challenge of figuring out what can you do that has immediate impact or can take advantage of the right now. If you're plotting like going to an HR conference that's in, already on the books for spring 2023, it's not going to help you now. So how do you think about the right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. You need a little bit of both, like longer range thinking and near-term thinking. And the way that I make that distinction is I talk about the two speeds of marketing. Speed one is longer range. So long lead time campaigns that require a lot of coordination and planning and integration across channels and integration across functions, because
Hmm.
this is how you have maximum impact as a company, is getting the entire company moving in that same direction. But
Hmm.
to the extent that you're only invested in that, it sort of slows down the entire organization, and it makes you less agile, less responsive to the things that come up in the moment. So
Hmm.
two is more of sense and respond. It's about identifying opportunities and moving very quickly to take
Hmm.
advantage of them. So the way I like to think about it is like, you have an idea Monday and it's in market on Thursday, which may be a slight exaggeration, but not by much.
Right.
And you need to have both muscles in your team.
Do you split that up by different people that are more long range, or you just look for people that have both muscles?
You look for people that have both muscles.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought that maybe you would organize around both modalities, but I've never done that. I think, and it all honestly doesn't work for everyone. Like, some people are completely whipsawed by that motion.
Hmm.
I found that people that understand and enjoy startups are the ones that are best equipped to sort of think in both modes.
Hmm. Right. And so, I guess on that topic, Visier is about HR and HR analysis, and looking to do career growth and planning and retention and the like. When has that long been, eh, or I guess how is that built into your strategy for building these very large marketing teams that remain flexible and remain agile even as they grew in size?
Yeah, when I was talking to Visier, I mean, the first thing that occurred to me is I don't know very much about HR, nor have I given it a whole lot of thought in the course
Hmm.
of my career. But when you think about what we do, it is more than solving HR problems,
Hmm.
because HR exists in the service of the business. And what is business? To paraphrase the awkward quote from Mitt Romney ages ago, um,
Yeah.
corporations are people, right? He
Right.
wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
That ultimately people represent the most significant lever for driving strategic change and advantage in your business. And it's, by the way, the most significant item in your budget. Um,
Mhm.
so what I found is that a lot of companies are like optimizing everything but their workforce and not thinking about people as strategically as they should. It's not an HR problem.
Mhm.
People are a business challenge and opportunity. And HR is a core part of our buying audience, but we think about it more broadly than that. For the example that I like to use is, if I'm a revenue leader, I want to know which of my highest performing sales reps are likely to churn.
Mhm.
I want to understand the ramp of my quota carrying reps. These are just important variables for understanding revenue risk and coverage to meet the business goals of the
Mhm.
company. And that's not HR.
Mhm. One of the challenges in some startups is you have a marketing organization that's not that large, and so you have people that maybe starting as content or digital or events or something, and it's a challenge of where do they go next? Like how do you do you bake in that kind of career planning and as you're working with your team when there's like a functional there's a functional specialty that someone has?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a really good one. I don't have a perfect answer to it, because I think it is very circumstantial and individual.
Mm.
And it starts with, this is an overused phrase, but I think it really matters in kind of everything we do in marketing and management and life, which is empathy,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is really caring and understanding in a fairly genuine way about what the aspirations are, the goals, the aspirations, the needs of the people that you're working with, to understand what they're trying to achieve.
Hmm.
And to the extent that you can understand what they're trying to achieve, you can both maximize their potential in their existing role and find them a path to what they want to do.
Right.
So I think it's almost as simple as that. And I do think, for example, if someone wants to be a CMO, and there's plenty of people on my team who I think have that ambition, the way I thought about approaching that journey was like building a portfolio of skills and experiences
Mm-hmm.
that allow you the greatest breadth and proximity to the different functions within the marketing portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about helping people master certain things and also get exposed to other things. And the way that we work as a team is in an integrated way. So even if you are a content specialist or a demand gen specialist, or you're in product marketing, the way that we bring that to life, that effort to life, is in a cross-channel, multifunctional way that gives people exposure to those other disciplines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just on that exposure to the disciplines, one way that I was curious your opinion on is using the customer as sort of the centralizing node on which that understanding could happen. You know, there was a Gartner survey that I just saw yesterday. I'm not sure when it came out, but it was looking at the top 3 weaknesses of a CMO as surveyed by non-CMOs, and which I thought was pretty interesting. And one was around technology and their ability to handle technology. One was around data, their ability to handle data. And then the third was around understanding of the customer. And I'll just put the technology one to a side for a second. But to me, it feels like the data and the customer really are interesting. And maybe we can take that in 2 steps, if you don't mind. Like for you, I know that, you know, you're from what I know of you, big fan of marketing ops, big fan of data. Maybe we could start there and just like how getting exposure to data and using data can play a role in you know, nurturing someone's marketing career and getting them to that CMO seat.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, while I am a big fan of data and marketing ops, it's not my power zone. Like this is an area where I hire.
Yeah.
So I have enough self-awareness to know that I'm inclined to go in a slightly different direction because my passion is more on the creative and strategic side. And I do trust my instincts maybe too much sometimes. So I need that counterbalance in my team. The first hires I'll make is something around marketing ops and sort of the revenue marketing side of the mix, because those are the areas where I just need a really strong second in the team.
Right.
But I, you know, while I do trust my instincts, I want to validate and verify those instincts with data, both because I'm not so arrogant to believe that I can, you know exactly, trust my instincts to that degree that I can commit the company's resource to it. And then secondly, because the way that you socialize ideas inside the company and get people to believe is with data. Yeah, the most conviction and the most determination will, you know, when you're talking about high stakes investments, are not going to get you there if you can't back it with data.
Right. Okay, great. Now on the customer side, that to me, I remember back when I was first starting out, our CMO at a company that I was at went up and did a presentation of a marketing project that we'd been working on for forever in front of an all hands meeting, and we were passionate about it, very excited. And he finished, he sat down, and the head of sales stood up and said, "That's baloney. Our customers will never accept that." He used some harsher words than that, but it'll never happen. And I remember thinking, if you don't know your customer as a marketer, if you're just sitting in an ivory tower, you're up a creek. It's the sales, you know, you got salespeople and customer success that are at the front of the, or in the coal mine, you know, hearing what's going on. How do you help your marketers to understand the customers? Is it, you know, is it just indirectly through sales, or are they going right out to speak with customers themselves?
It's a great question. So one of the great advantages that we have as a company is really proud of the product that we have, and it's really best in class, and our customers love it. We have a lot of raving fans.
Yeah.
One of the investments that we made recently is in customer marketing, which I think was under-resourced given the asset that we have there. So we do a lot of work with our customers, finding their stories, telling their stories, bringing their stories to life, understanding who they are, understanding their backstory, and really getting to know them on a personal level. You know, who's the human behind this, and what are they trying to achieve in their own careers? And I think that because we are naturally storytellers, that's who marketers are in many cases, and curious humans, we're driven to understand the person that much better. And if we're asking the right questions and sort of getting to know them on that level, you get beyond the platitudes of problem, solution, impact that that often don't reveal the things that matter most, which is the person behind the story. Because ultimately that's the interesting stuff. Whether you're selling to consumers or to businesses, you are selling to humans, and ultimately understanding what they care about, what they stand for, what they aspire to become is a huge part of knowing your customer.
Right. That's great. Well, let's go back to brand, if you don't mind, for a second. Often brand, you think of brand in the context of, increasing the multiple or just increasing awareness, or getting goodwill on your assets for as an asset. But I mean, you've just done incredible things with, Pendo's brand is just an incredible brand. Visier, it looks like, is on track to just continue its great brand awareness. How do you think about brand outside of just like the goodwill asset, but in terms of like a lead generative tool?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something I'm pretty passionate about. I think that, and we're starting to catch on in B2B to the importance of brand. And I think Pendo is a good example of a company that really got brand and invested in brand. Even when we couldn't entirely measure the impact, there needs to be a bit of a leap of faith and a confidence that it's going to pay off over time. And it creates a certain force multiplier on your efforts, both from a pipeline creation perspective, in terms of breaking through the noise and telling a story that's distinctive and gets people's attention, but also from a win rate and conversion perspective, because it creates differentiation. It just does. People want to be part of something bigger. They want to be part of something that's larger than the sum of its parts and larger than the thing they're buying. The example I like to use, which I think was also the pattern that we saw at Pendo, was in the early days of digital marketing, marketers would hitch their wagon to a platform. You saw people that built their brands, their own personal brands and careers around Eloqua and Marketo and HubSpot. And they wore it as a badge of pride because they recognized, this is my future. Things are changing, and I need to be part of this change. And I want to be part of this change. And we saw the same thing happen at Pendo as product managers leaned into more data-driven approaches. And they hitched their wagon to the movement we were creating. So I think that's how I think about brand, is create something bigger, meaning beyond the sum of the product parts that you're selling. And it does create a multiplier from the perspective of how you generate pipeline, how you win and close deals, how you retain customers, and how you create the advocacy loop that makes customers raving fans who tell your story on your behalf.
That's great. Thanks, Jake. So one of the things that I really find really interesting is you see a lot of these companies like, say, Drift, where they're battling against forms, or Zuora, where they're about the mission for the new subscription economy. How do you get there? How do you find what that mission is for Visier or for any other companies that you've been at before?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the way I think about it is every company has their why, and it's really important to identify what that why is that becomes the galvanizing mission for the company. And being able to distill it down to something as simple and memorable as no more forms, or as in the case of Salesforce, no software. Right, that was kind of the most memorable one, I think, is really important. It doesn't quite need to be that sticky, but I think that there needs to be alignment within the organization around what that why is, because from that why comes everything you do from a marketing perspective and from a storytelling perspective.
That's great. But how do you keep everyone on board with that why? Like, you'd get the why, and then you want to make everyone else aware of it and using it. What do you do next?
Yeah, the way I think about it is celebrating it, elevating it, and delivering against it. So it's something that's visible and visceral within the organization. And it's also something that you are showing progress toward. So everything sort of resolves back to that why. And it just makes it impossible to ignore, and one of those things that you start to feel in your bones.
That's great. It's almost like there's like storytelling around the storytelling, like it's
very meta.
Yeah, yeah. Well, terrific. Well, Jake, this has been a real great pleasure. I've been really enjoyed the chance to hear your thoughts on brand, on career growth, and more. But I do have to ask though, Vancouver or North Carolina for sailing? What's
Oh man. I feel like in my career, I've been to a lot of places. I go to Vancouver quite a lot. I
yeah,
actually been there, I don't know, dozens of times, really.
yeah,
Not even, and not for Visier.
yeah,
And I one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. And man, it looks like a sailing paradise. I've never sailed there.
yeah, yeah,
I go to these places and I don't do anything but go
yeah.
to hotels.
That's true. Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
so I can't say, but I'll tell you, it looks like an absolutely beautiful place to sail.
that's great. Well, Jake, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing your perspective.
Likewise. Thank you, Peter.